Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Discussing a Murderer live after Discussing a Murderer episode 46. Great to have everybody here in chat with us. We'll go and check who's in chat early on, and Katie did it's here, and Anthony. Rumor has it. Thanks for joining us, Master Cedar, Anthony Hills, and I hope some others will also join us shortly. So, thanks everybody for joining. It's was quite a fun premiere. I don't know if that's the right word for fun, if it was fun or not, but very interesting premiere. I really enjoyed it. And why don't we go around and say hello to everybody here today on the panel, and we'll start with Kelly. How you doing, Kelly? Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Hello to everyone in chat. Yeah, I'm doing well, thank you.
Excellent. And Calf, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Pretty good. And
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear you. Some days are like that, right? And Jack.
Hell yeah, busier than a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest.
Wow. That's I
Yeah.
haven't heard that one in a while, but that
Yeah,
one
that's pretty old.
that brings me back.
Yeah, doing good.
Great. Well, just I guess it's great to have everybody in chat. Great to have you guys here on the panel. If anybody has any questions about the premiere or anything about the show or any questions in general, drop them in there. Hey Shandy, nice to see you. And Mary's here. Under Your Scars is here. Duke Juke is here. Kelly McCallian is here. Anthony, I think I said Anthony and Mass. Yeah, so great to have everybody in chat. Anybody have anything just to mention about the previous episode of Discussing a Murder that we just saw? I thought it was I think we're almost getting nostalgic here wrapping up that series. Because it was the second last episode, and this is actually the last live that we will do connected to Discussing a Murderer. So, in a way, we're kind of wrapping this show up in a way too. Haven't decided if we'll do a Tuesday live regularly. I kind of want to, but haven't put that into motion yet. So, in a way, this is kind of a wrap up show for our live team, our Discussing a Murderer after live team. So, any comments you guys have about the case or anything, any questions you have for us, let us know. Other than that, I will open it kind of up to whoever wants to get some topics rolling. Something that I picked out in the premiere, what stuck out at me. I think that the dissenting opinions by the judges, and I know that we don't always think about the dissenting opinions as meaning anything, but the dissenting opinion in any judgment, it is important because it is a chance for those judges to throw up their hands and protest and say, hey, we were beat 5-4 here. But let me tell you why I think this is wrong. And I know that doesn't necessarily have a sway in a legal sense, that a dissenting opinion doesn't hold any legal weight. But I think it's an important step in the process because, like we read in the premiere, the words of the judges that sided with Brendan were really powerful. And so that's just kind of something that I just picked out about how important the process is to allow judges to have that dissenting opinion. I think it's really important. But if you guys want to comment on that, it's up to you. Otherwise, Jack?
Well, I guess it probably angers me more thinking about it again as to how the process actually works. And just as a side note, possibly we're going to try. I asked Travis a few weeks ago if he would come on to the open mic and talk about the post-conviction process. Mainly about Wisconsin, but other states too. And I know they vary this and that and other thing, but by and large, I think they're relatively close to the same. I know there are probably certain rules that apply to certain states that may not apply to another one, but it will give us a good feel. He's going to explain the process from a legal standpoint, so everybody is clear. Because, in our minds, we think about, as a non-lawyer, I know I do, I think about, as Big Jeff and I talk about in our reasonable Big Jeff and Jack and whoever wants to join us law firm, about the reasonable man, or the reasonable woman. What would they decide? What's reasonable? And that's not really the way it works. They're just like, the court system. They have their own processes, just like working in a manufacturing plant or whatever, that that guides them. That's law. That's their statute. That's what they decided they wanted. A lot of times these statutes have exceptions and so forth that, there may be a way around a certain thing, but he's going to come on and talk about that, hopefully this coming Sunday on the open mic. And that's the plan anyway. So I think that'll be interesting. But talking about the process around Brendan, and I don't know, as just a regular person that has listened and read everything about Brendan, I'm appalled at how the whole process was allowed to play out. Judge Duffin basically said, let him go. You got 90 days to let him go or retry him. Brad Schimmel has a cow or four, and throws in an emergency stay and all that shit that went through. It goes to the Seventh Circuit. They affirm it. They affirm Judge Duffin's position. And the state is allowed yet another chance. They're given this rare opportunity. And I mean, it is rare. Some years, if you go back and look at the percentages of how many times an en banc was granted, many years are less than 1% of en banc requests for en banc are actually granted. So that tells you the volume of cases that are decided by the three-panel system. I think it's a sham. I think it's terrible. As they're part of our justice system, any justice system. His case was decided. It was reaffirmed, and then what did they do? They went back and they studied the exact same material again with some different judges, and they decided differently, and the other two didn't matter. I just think it's wrong. No way around it for me.
Yeah, I know that's something that you feel really strongly about. We've talked on, a lot about the, and then the en banc and the three panel, and I keep going back to a couple things that Stephen had said in response to Brendan winning his first appeal, and then the state, of course, appealing that. Now they want more judges, Stephen said. Oh, those judges weren't good. Now they need more judges to figure this out, right? And it kind of in a way, in a folksy way that I talk about, Stephen is saying the same thing that you're saying, Jack, that they just get another bite at it. That we didn't like this answer, we're going to try this other one now.
That's right. In the very same court. This wasn't a different court. There wasn't anything new that got presented at all. Nothing. It's all the same material. To me, I'm telling you, it stinks of double jeopardy to me. I know that's not correct exactly, but it's damn close.
Well, we talked about that bite at the apple, right? And how many times does the state get it before it just seems like you've had too many attempts, right? You just keep I don't know. I agree with you. There's something that needs to be adjusted in there, because if you and I think this has come up before. If you say we're going to make this en banc panel and have all the judges, then all the judges should be there.
If that's what you're going to do, if you're going to,
they should all be there.
There shouldn't be a choice. Their next step should have been the Supreme Court. That's what the state should have had to take it to appeal that decision. And chances are Supreme Court probably wouldn't have heard the case. And I'm sure that, this gives them an out that in my opinion, shouldn't be there. You do one or the other, and there's no way they could do the en banc. They would be so bogged down. There is no way. The court would crumble. It would fall upon its own weight. So that's why they did it. That's why they do the three-panel system, so they can cover more cases.
I mean, I can see by design, like what, like the practical application, why they want to do that because of the caseload. And
That
well, the other alternative is hire more judges. But the problem with that is nobody wants to pay for more judges. Nobody wants their taxes to go up. You know what I mean? Like that's the practicality of it.
Oh yeah, well there's a bunch of I haven't checked in a while, but the last time I looked at the Seventh Circuit, there was a bunch of empty seats. It's not
Wow.
a full panel. Yeah, I think the full panel's 11 or 12, and last time I checked, there was 7, I think. So it's not a full panel anyway. It's kind of a partial. I mean, it's all they got. So
Well, I know something about partial panels and full panels, and I always like the full. I always like the full panel better.
of course, absolutely. But yeah, I just think I think it's a sham on our system. I think it gives it a bit of a black eye. It's kind of like how many times are the cops allowed to enter someone's residence to keep you looking for shit? Well, how many times did they go into Steven's trailer in the garage?
It's
It was a
unbelievable.
It's the same thing. It's the same mentality. I'm gonna go back in till I find something. Basically, is what they're saying, and they did. So
Huh. You know, and then there's the issue that we saw in the beginning of this one is about the Deborah Kakach issue, and I struggle with this one because I've been thinking about it pretty hard, and I would hate to say this, but let's just say she did process the scene and she is there and she's the coroner on duty, and they circumvent her some other way. They circumvent her some other way. They figure out how to, oh well, yeah, that's yeah, like there's always a way, right? So let's just say that she was allowed there. This is a big what if. This is a big what if. But from what I understand about lawyers, would Dean and Jerry had said, "Hey, she wasn't supposed to be there. She's Manitowoc County," and argued
nah,
for the opposite. Do you see what I'm saying?
yeah, I don't know. That's one of those impossible rabbit holes for me. But the thing
Hmm.
is that right, wrong, or indifferent, and we'll never know because it wasn't allowed. But right, wrong, or indifferent, when Sturdivant saw what he saw, and probably Jost too, or Yost, they suspect that there's human remains there. Their first call is maybe to their superior, but then it's somebody's got to contact the county coroner. That's state law, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it on the 9th either at the quarry. They didn't do it. They didn't call anyone, and I think then you got to ask yourself, well, when if cops find a suspected murder or suspected human bones, when do they call the coroner? I mean, is it only for a car accident or some other issue that they feel like that they don't want to deal with it and it should be the coroner? When does that decision made? That's the real question, and I can't answer it because they didn't call her. They didn't contact her at all. And Glazer, he was brought in and taken to the quarry after the fact, after they had already gathered everything. It was done by the time he got there because they had all those troopers. You can see the login and log out sheets for the 9th where all those troopers and other people from these various departments came in and helped search the quarry. So it's a real problem. I just don't know, Jeff. I don't know how
Yeah,
that would have played out.
it's not really. It's. I mean, it's not. It's not necessarily a fair question. It's a hard question. But the one thing that I take away from the Deborah Kakach situation is that my focus is not so much on should she have been allowed there, but and I'm not. And I'm what I'm trying to say is like for me the focus is Andrew Colburn and James Link should not have been there. Like and sometimes they get kind of they get crossed into a whataboutism. Well, what about Colburn and Link? That's the issue for me. Like that should be focused on harder. They had no reason to be there, and any evidence that's found while they're there should be thrown out. And that's not how it happened in court because they had a sympathetic judge. But
Well, I
that's
know
the
that
part that
Yost.
makes me wild.
I know that Yost wasn't part of that lawsuit, but the county was, and he was allowed to help process the burn pit. He helped them. He helped them excavate. So It was more than just resources. They helped. They participated in that investigation. There's no way around it. So, whatever Crass and Poggle and the rest of them said, it was more than just providing, lunches and running to get lights and generators. It was far more than that. Far more.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Jost is an interesting character, isn't he? So, anybody, you guys, Kaf, Kel, anything you want to pick out from that last episode, or really any episode, as this is kind of the wrap up live for discussing a murderer, because this is the last one. So, any comments, just generally, any issue that you've been thinking about, or that's come up recently?
I don't know. I'm mind boggled that they didn't let the coroner in, even if there was like no body, so to speak. I still think that she should have been involved. And just keeping her out of the loop just makes it all even more suspicious in my mind.
Yeah, it's funny. I think Mary makes a good point. She said, just ignore the state law. Like Jack said, it's state law to identify the coroner. It's like, this comes to the core of the problem I see in a lot of accountability, right? Popular word, not popular when you're on the other end of it. But if I break state law, the prosecutor opens a case, they interview me, they arrest me. If a law enforcement officer violates state law, what do you think happens? Usually,
nothing.
Not
it
much.
Depends, but typically, we don't know about it. And even if we do, it somehow they
get arrested in the big instances, right? The ones that are like massively. But this kind of stuff where they're like, oh yeah, was I supposed to call that is a state law, isn't it? To call in the
county? It is.
Oh,
it
gosh,
is.
I forgot, Your Honor, I forgot. And then they go, oh, he forgot. It's okay. Let's move on. Let's catch some real people who broke the law. And that's what I talk about accountability.
If it's a rookie, okay. But Sturdivant had been in the DCI for, 10, 12 years, I think. And prior to that, I think he was a trooper or something. He'd been in law enforcement a long time. He knew. He damn well knew. And so did those other ones that were involved. But there's no talk of it at all. Just like there's no talk of. I mean, when Sipple made that call, and he said, 2 5-gallon buckets of human bones. I mean, they didn't talk about him and Rush. Captain Rush didn't talk about calling the coroner, which should have been the first thing. Rush should have said, we got to get the coroner out there. He knows. There's no way around it. So I don't know. It's why it makes me wonder when do they really contact the coroner? What's even funnier, there's at least, I'm thinking there's 2 calls in Manitowoc where whoever the standby coroner was on call, left messages with Deputy Inspector Shetter. I'm gonna be on call tomorrow, so if you need anything. So I don't know. I just think there's really no excuse. And it makes me wonder when do they call them? I mean, what are the circumstances that forces their hand to say, well, we better call a coroner?
And Pennywise brings up a good point. This is what I'm saying about accountability. So if the coroner's not there and the scene gets processed without the coroner because the state law is to have the coroner there, then shouldn't, what they say in court is it's fruit from a poisonous tree. The problem is like we can sit here and say that from a podcast, like this is how it should be. It should be like this, but I don't know if it's always as easy as well. And then the word that you use, Pennywise, and I appreciate it, is consequence. And I think that's where we get to. There doesn't seem to be any consequence for law enforcement casually breaking laws like this. This is the policy. Well, and then you get into a muddy area that there's policy and then there's law. and they break policy all the time. Well, what's a policy if it has no teeth? If there's no accountability to the policy, what is a policy other than just words on paper? And I don't know. I hear what you're saying there, Pennywise, and that's the fruit of the poison tree, I think, is what you're getting at. And I tend to agree with you in concept there. Well, you know, some of the best things that I liked about this live were the picture time that we did so many months. I think we did it for about 2 months, Jack. Just cruising through pictures, or longer.
Oh, at least, probably longer than that. Because some nights, we didn't get through as many. So, yeah, the pictures are really, the pictures are really interesting. And if I could kind of break protocol here for a second, I want to show everybody something. I told you guys about it before the live, but I'll share this just so this is clear.
There are consequences for breaking protocol here, though. On discussing a murder. This isn't Manitowoc County, Jeff. I'm just kidding.
Picture time.
What do you got, Jack? Looking for it?
I'm gonna pull it up here if I can find it. Yeah, here it is, right here.
It is hard to believe that next week is the last episode of the entire series. Which we should warn everyone now that it was like 2 and a bit hours for the finale.
It's pretty long.
On a 10-minute like segment of the actual discussing a murderer.
Yeah, just this thing I'm going to show that as soon as Jeff gets it on screen. This is some photos. It's folders of photos, and I'll explain what they are.
Sorry, Jack. I'll be right with you, bud.
Yeah, it's fine.
Being a slow guy. Here we go.
Okay, so these are folders of photos from Trooper Reese and Trooper Judge. And these guys are from the Wisconsin State Trooper Accident Reconstruction Unit. It's a specialized unit. They go out when there's a bad car wreck. They get called out. They do measurements. They take photos. They do their total control system to reproduce how an accident happens, and for court, for safety, the whole nine works. I don't remember who called them in exactly. I don't know if it was Kratz or I don't remember, but somebody called them in on the afternoon of November 5. And they didn't get there until later in the afternoon, so I can understand. There are no photos from them from November 5th. And I understand that. They're getting there, getting unpacked and all that shit. So, but they were there. Okay, if you look at the photos, starting on the 6th, then we move into the 7th. There's several rolls on the 7th, actually. All the way through... roll 14. And also don't forget on the 7th, helicopter pilot state trooper from the same unit, McConnell, took about 170 photos of Cuss Road and the surrounding area. So there's also those to add with what was taken on the 7th. Then it jumps to November 10. There's nothing for the 8th and 9th. Nothing. These guys were there every day from the 5th until the 12th. Every day. It's been bothering me for actually quite some time, and I've just never acted on it. So about 3 weeks ago, I requested from these same people, the state trooper, same records custodian, any and all photos from November 8th and 9th from Reese, etc., etc. Didn't hear anything, so Sunday night, after the open mic, I sent a status update request, and I got a reply today. And basically, I'll just read it to you. Just take a second for me to open it here. She says, "Good morning. Sorry for the delay in response. I was out of the office. The records you are requesting are beyond our records retention policy and no longer exist. Thank you." What? Well, of course, as I told Jeff and Kel and Cap, I took this as a challenge because I know that Seeking Truth requested these photos in late summer, early fall of 2018. Why weren't they included then? And on top of that, who got a copy of them? Because somebody's got to have a copy of these photos. And why were they excluded from her request? They were all taken at the same time. They should have all been bundled at the same time for that request. So I didn't get a reply. I sent it later this afternoon. That reply later this afternoon. So hopefully I'll get a reply soon and try to get whatever photos they took on the 8th and 9th. Like I said, the 5th, I didn't really expect them to have any photos. But the 8th and 9th, I certainly do. And she's now indicated that there were photos taken and we didn't get them. That's a problem. That's a real problem for me. So anyway, thought I'd share that with everyone. And I'm sure I say I'm sure. If it turns out that there are photos and it's been a whoopsie, there's no consequences. If it turns out they have deleted the photos, oops, there's no consequences. So it's exactly what Jeff was talking about a minute ago. Even when they fuck up, there's no consequences for anyone. It's just like, oh, okay, well, sorry, bye.
You violated state law. Yep, sure did. Sure did. Yeah, we did.
Here's the thing. And I'm almost positive about this. This is part of their record. When photos like this have been requested, a copy be made of, and it's been sent out to various agencies and so forth, a record of that is kept. A copy of that is kept. They can't just burn it and say, oh, it's beyond our retention policy. I think. I'm not going to swear to that, but I'm pretty sure that's right. Because it's part of the investigation. So a copy has to be kept. If it's not a policy, then why do we have the photos that we do have of recent Judge and McConnell?
Good point.
They should have been thrown away along with the 8th and 9th. Sorry, I'm not buying it.
If policies and law don't have teeth, then they're just words on paper.
That's right. That's exactly right. Anyway,
hopefully
we'll get some.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, hopefully I'll get something. New photos.
Well, let us know.
I will. I will.
Well, we got kind of something different today, guys. It's been a while since we had somebody from the chat or another friend of ours join in to the live. So we're gonna welcome in a new guest. I kind of want to see, let the chat kind of, who could it be? It's a new guest, guys. Somebody that's oftentimes in the chat. You don't have to guess, but if you do, I would think it's funny. Who do you think it could be? Okay, no one's chatted. Dun, 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 dun. Anyway, I don't want to make too much of it, but we want to welcome Duke Juke to the show. Welcome, Duke Juke, to the show. Thanks for joining us. How are you doing today?
First of all, wow, thanks for having me on. And like I was saying just a minute ago, you guys got to let me know if this microphone, you can hear me a little bit better than on my reading with the crew. I know that my experiment with the AirPods and doing my first show was not the best from an audio standpoint. So just kind of give me a thumbs
Sounds
up.
Good. No,
it's better. I can tell you it's better.
Okay, beautiful. Well, yeah, like I said, Jeff, I really appreciate you having me on, and I can't stay too long, 20, 30 minutes or so, but I'm just I'm honored to be on and happy to be a part of the conversation. That's for sure.
Oh, cool, man. Appreciate it. Well, is there anything that you as long as we got you here, any kind of comments that you'd like to make about the show that the premiere that we did, or any of the hot topics that are in your head, or even anything from chat that you've been watching?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I love your show because I do think it's the great connector between where this all started and where this is now, right? so many people started, and most everyone started their whole journey with this case along the lines of making a murderer. And oftentimes, from the guilter side of things, the criticism that we hear, especially for people that are dedicated to researching this case, and the frustrating thing to hear is that, we're just taking all of our facts from making a murder, when that's not the case. That being said, I have learned through your show that there are good, nice little golden nuggets of information that we find in that show that we don't necessarily see on paper or in the trial transcripts and stuff like that. And so it's just a really refreshing change of pace for someone like myself doing research to go back and go over this show, not only just with my own eyes, but with the eyes of a lot of other people who are dedicated to finding the truth out here. So that's kind of my overall thoughts on your show and the feedback I have for you. But as far as hot topics, I mean, I'm just very much so into digging through the bones and all the confusion of the barrels and pits and stuff like that. And it's a massive journey to kind of explore. But there's some things that I'm pulling out that I just think need to be discussed, if nothing else, and I know, and I'd love to hear from Kelly, because a lot of these things are just talk about them, but that's all we can do. So I'm not sure what will come out of it, but the more we talk, I feel like the better chances we have of something happening.
Well, absolutely. I appreciate those comments that you made, and I know you've been really interested in the bones. I think we're all very interested in the bones as well. So, if there's anything that you have, any of your angle on it or your theories, like feel free to unpack some of it here or talk about it, because I'm sure that everybody on the panel would love to talk about it from someone new. That's the other thing, is like, it's just good to have new people in the space as well. Keeps it fresh, it keeps it interesting, and we'd love to hear more about your research around the bones or anything else that you've been working on, anything at all. So yeah, welcome.
Well, I'm happy to throw out just one quick thing to kind of
Sure.
maybe spark a little conversation here and get your guys' thoughts on it.
Sure.
It's something that I was floating by in Discord earlier, but what I've really focused on, and what I think, at least from my research, lacks a lot of discussion, is Ertl's involvement in not only sifting through the burn pit and what that process looked like, but also discussing his sifting through the 5 burn barrels on the 7th and the 8th of November, because a lot of the discovery from these burn barrels, the big one on the 12th of finding the bones in Dassey's burn barrel, or the Yonder burn barrel number 2, I've always just kind of accepted that as true. And what I'm realizing now, with hearing that Ertl sifted through that same burn barrel.
Lost you.
Oh.
Lost you, Duke.
You hear me now? Check.
Yeah.
I can hear you. Yeah.
That was probably the state. What I'm realizing now is that, Ertl sifted that same burn barrel, Yonder burn barrel number 2, by hand on November 7th. And I'm supposed to believe, I guess, that he somehow missed 34 fragments of bone when he was sifting, looking for bone. And so I guess I don't know if that's something you guys have an angle you've looked at as far as Ertl's processing of 5 burn barrels, and how the contents of his findings were basically, it was basically written up that he didn't find anything, and that all the discoveries within these burn barrels happened on the 12th or later. So have you guys looked at that, or what are your thoughts on that? Not sure if that's anything you've kind of...
Oh, absolutely. It's interesting. It just sounds more like the bullet fragment. It sounds more like the key, right? Wasn't found until. It's more of the same pattern, right? That you're
Right.
seeing
What
that
about-
on every aspect of the case.
What about item BC? Where the fuck did that come from? Because who plopped it in the tarp? Because if they would have seen that on the top, if Ertl has seen that in that top mesh, we talked about this the other day, there's no way he wouldn't have known. There's no way, unless his back was turned and somebody says, "Hey, that looks weird. Let me throw that." That's not going to pass through. I guess it could have happened, in real life and reality. But I think personally, if he had seen that chunk of meat, there's no doubt he would have said, "Wait, what's this?"
Well, and that's kind of how I feel with the Yonda burn barrel number 2. I mean, we talk about the long bone fragments that are found in there, not only just long bone fragments, but ones that are found with cut marks on them. You think he would take a look and say, nah, nothing, throw it back in there.
But that's the thing. They knew early. They knew by the 7th or the 8th that some of those bones had hesitation cut marks. They knew it because they were looking for a hacksaw blade. It was Sturdivant and I think maybe Link that were looking for some other hacksaw blade that's mentioned in, I can't remember which report, but it's there. I remember reading it. I think the barrels are just, they're such a mess, and the way that they were tracked through the chain of custody, it's just a disaster. It's just a disaster.
I can't help thinking that there was something in the deer camp barrel.
That's possible, Kath.
I just can't shake it from my mind.
Why would they guard it?
Exactly.
No. It could be completely coincidental, but I just find it funny that item 7963 is content from the deer camp, charred contents found from the deer camp, and item 7964 is charred contents apparently found from the resifting of burn barrel number 2.
That is weird.
Sometimes the numbers in these things, you
tell a story
about. Yeah, I mean, the big discovery of the box of bones in Stevens burn pit is 8318, but item BZ is 7926. So how do we get a number that was before? For it just you can't help but kind of look funny at it. What else can I make of it? I don't know, but it just looks and smells funny.
Before Cal talks, you do know that you looked through the ledgers. I take it, yes. You've thumbed through the actual, and that there were many items that were relabeled. You've seen that, right?
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Right. Just want to make sure.
I was just going to say, I'm going to disclose it now. I've never really got into the burn barrels. It was all, I kind of wanted to get into it back when Kathleen had her original motion and the returning of the bones became relevant, and I was kind of drifting into doing that, like exploring it. But I kind of, by the time I found time to start exploring it, unfortunately, the courts of appeal kind of come back and affirmed Judge Ange, and it got all procedurally barred. So I was like, well, to me, my thought process at the time was like, there's no point now. There's nothing you can do in terms of the bones because they're kind of a dead issue now. Not saying that there isn't room to keep exploring, and hell, there might be something that comes out of it, new evidence that you could find. So I'm all for it. The only thing that I always think though, and I agree with exactly how you put it at the very beginning, you kind of just accepted it, that there was just bones found and they were clearly obviously missed. And I think I based it because of the dog, the cadaver dog, I believe, hit on the barrel on the 5th very early. So I think a lot of people hang their hats on that, going, well, there was something obviously there that, and I'm the first to preach that it couldn't have been human, animal bone, because animal bones, they're taught to, they're trained to smell beyond that. So I just assumed, like you did, that the bones must have been there and they just unfortunately was missed. But the fact that you've done a little bit more research and is saying that it was properly shifted through, and you guys, well, not you guys, but someone was going through it and then returned it all and then came back days later. And it's actually really interesting, especially to me, because I hadn't heard that, or I haven't explored that enough to even let it sink in that's quite relevant, I guess.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you too, and you make a really good point that I think is important here. I 100% believe that something that had human decomposition on it was in those 2 burn barrels, because I do believe the dogs. You know, I believe that those dogs are good at their jobs. They're trained very specifically, and we can't understand or can't comprehend their ability to distinguish those smells. But if you look into them, I'm sorry, but I believe them. It's the same way that it's the same reason that I believe the 3 separate cadaver dogs that hit on blood and supposed tissue in Mitchell's quarry on the 6th, which then Cherie Culhane says when she tests it is non-human. I don't believe her. You either believe her or you believe these 3 cadaver dogs. And I'm sorry, but I'm going to believe the dogs every time.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because when you were saying that, my mind just took me to, it's the dogs that also has me also believing, and I'm going to speak on pretty much everyone here and probably even in the channel that agree that the bones were planted after the fact, that no cadaver dogs hit on the pit of Stephen Avery's when all of them should have made a beeline straight to that area. If they can sit on a barrel that has teeny tiny little fragments and they're picking up on that decomposition of a body and all the toxins and all the cadaver side of it, then why didn't they have that same effect on the pit? So you're right, the dogs are telling a story. So what is that story? What was in that barrel? I don't know. You know, we've got people like Eric Cozy. We've had people, I think Foul Play. There's a lot of people that have had interviews with cadaver dog or dog handlers, and they've kind of really, you know, try to detail as much as they can on if different expertise and their area and stuff. But then you kind of go back and you go, so remind me, could a dog hit on, you know, we have Barb who lived in the house, and she obviously is a female, and a female has monthly cycles. Is that a point of what they're picking up? There's all these variables that come with it. Now, I'm not taking away that Ockman's razor, the state would probably turn around and say, was the dog hit on the barrel, there was bones in the barrel, yeah, they just got missed. I get it. But like you said, there could be something more, and we have
Hey,
to
Kelly,
explore it. Yeah.
I'm just thinking, because Brian has said in the comments, like when the dogs hit barrel on the 5th, could it have been blood that they were detecting?
Well, that's one of the variables that I'm saying. Could it have been a tissue with blood on it, a nosebleed?
Yeah.
It could have been a monthly cycle, you know, situation where she's just disposed of it in the barrel, thinking that, you know, it was going to get incinerated, burnt. That was their rubbish. Over in Australia, we have rubbish bins, and that is, we put it out once a week. A truck comes, picks up. We don't burn rubbish at our residence, not in my suburb anyway. We don't do that. It's not something. So that's why I am curious, because this isn't something I'm experienced in. So it's interesting.
Yeah, and it's a great question, and I think for anyone who's interested in taking that step further to kind of look into it themselves, because you know, I feel I'm not an expert, but I've done some research, and my research is telling me that these cadaver dogs are 100% capable of distinguishing between any sort of human remains or animal. But you make a great point with the, you know, could this just been something innocent, like a bloody nose, or, you know, that time of month or whatever it is? Yeah, probably they could. So yeah, I think those are great points for you know, everyone to look at. I also think it's important to remember there's some burnt clothes and a shovel that I've always wondered about as well. I kind of personally lean towards potentially some clothes are in there. There's a funny dance with a red cutoff shirt that is supposedly there, and then it gets found somewhere else, and then returned, and then found in another barrel. But yeah, I mean, it's just another like little tidbit to explore. And again, I think in this case, each piece of evidence deserves to be looked at in 10 different ways, because I'm sorry, but I can't trust any of it.
Yeah, I know why Kel's not quite as insane as the rest of us, because she didn't really look too far into the burn barrels. And I'm telling you, it's a disaster. It's just a disaster. I tried. Others have really tried. And there's been some really good posts put up. I know Seeking Truth did one. She did a couple on the bones back a few years ago. I know she did one called the long bone, but talking about the tibia and some other interesting posts about them. But to just simply sit down and think you can easily track the barrels and their contents. And again, for those out there, I should have said this a few minutes ago. You have to remember that, like if you have a property tag 7963, a lot of times what would happen is that property tag would get dumped out, and out of what's in 7963, there would be more property tags created out of 7963. It wouldn't just, so it's not just one thing in 7963. It could be many things. A lot of people don't understand that. So it can get very tedious and very confusing.
And even if you spend, as much time, as you possibly can, and BZ is a great example. There's a lot of misconception around BZ and what it really is. And to be quite frank, I'm still not sold on exactly what all is actually BZ, what went to the FBI, what went to Eisenberg, what was cut by Culhane. Like, I don't know. And it's frustrating to me that we can't figure that out. And it seems like there should be some sort of like standard that we should hold law enforcement to be able to maintain a clear chain of custody with crucial evidence in a murder case. So it's frustrating that we can't get that here.
This is, I just got to bring it up because this is the point that I continually hear from the Center for the Integrity and Forensic Sciences with Catherine Judson. That's the center that was started by Dean Strang and Jerry Buting. And they say, this is the crucial point right here that you're talking about. It needs to be separate from law enforcement.
It must be.
Science to the scientists. Leave the science to the scientists. Different department for evidence collection. Those are not the law enforcement people. Those are not the sheriff. Those are not the deputies. Those are not from their unit. They're a completely third party, and that's the answer. So I know that that's existential to the discussion you were just mentioning, and it's maybe not a real life thing, but this is what would solve a lot of these problems. I think it's a really good angle.
And it needs to be double blind. It needs to be a double blind collection for the analyst that actually does the testing. They get something in with a number. They analyze it and give the result. Right. And that is picked up, and only, a key person, whoever that may be, and that's vetted and trusted, but have where it came from. It can't be any other way if you want to be truly honest and keep the bias out of it. You test it, you give the result, and you move forward. It gets presented, or there's no evidence at all.
Yeah, if you ever want to have a fun read, just look at all the. There's a chain of custody document for the state crime lab, and you can see how different it is for other analysts who are testing things in this case. They will remove it from storage. They'll usually test it that day or the day after, and then you'll see it a few days later or the next day even. It's returned to storage, and it's this really clean chain. But with Cherie Culhane, everything gets taken out. It's with her for months on end, and then they all go back on the same day. So it's like you get this visual, and it's probably not true, but I just get this visual of her having like drawers full of all sorts of different things at her disposal. And I'm like, why is this like?
Oh, I think it is true.
Yeah.
I think she's just a sloppy analyst, and that's why she's had such a high rate of contamination incidents in her in her work and reports.
It just makes the manipulation of evidence so easy. And for people who are out there that feel like the state might have done something wrong, but have kind of bought into the whole like, well, can you really believe the state's running around with DNA? It's just not that difficult. It's a simple switch in a lab and you're done. And so, again, my opinion, but I can never trust what Sheree Culhane did in this case.
Not one bit. And that's another point, and you guys can talk about it or not, or those in the chat. Everybody has to remember that Culhane did control all the swabs. She testified to that. She had them all. So for her to make a switch, it's nothing. It's nothing, and that doesn't require 50 people to conspire. It just doesn't. It's one person that makes the switch, and no one's the wiser except her.
I know I might be jumping the gun, but I know that Duke has like a limited time, so I just kind of want to get to the point and be a bit cheeky about this. Duke, with all the hard work you've been doing in terms of the bones and, obviously all the documents you're going through and all the connections you're making, what is your have you formed an opinion yet on the authenticness of where the bones may have come from? Do you believe that there was always bones in the burn barrel 2 of the Dassey residence or Yanda, or do you think that there is maybe a potential evidence there that there is something fuzzy and there's been a swap out? If you're comfortable in answering that, of course.
Sure, I'm happy to, and I think part of this will be to hold me to a little asterisk saying that I give myself the ability to change this opinion if I find something that doesn't fit with it. But no, I do think, and I appreciate you asking because I do have to run here in a minute, but here's kind of where my head is at right now with everything. I do believe, like I said before, when the burn barrels are removed, there's this really, and I'm really trying to hone in on it, but there's this really interesting series of events that takes place where the barrels leave the salvage yard. There's this reported, we stopped because something was rattling in the radio traffic. You hear them ask for them to come back. There's this kind of gap delay in that transition between the salvage yard and when they get to Calumet County Sheriff's Office with evidence. And personally, I believe there's something that's done in that time frame with the help of some other officers to either switch, remove. I don't know. But I do believe that there was a significant amount of evidence found in those barrels and that some of those materials were probably used to then put in the burn pit. I'm someone who personally believes when Ertl walks up and he says the scene was obviously altered, when he says that, to me, I just get the feeling that maybe he's looking in the burn pit and seeing like some things that he had already sifted through in the burn barrel the day before. I don't know. So bigger picture, this screams, and every single thing that I look at tells me that whatever is happening is being controlled by someone up top. There's a plan in place. However, as they go, they're kind of adjusting their plan based on what they're finding. It's very obvious that Stephen is their target. You have people talking about him. Do we have him in custody on the 5th? You have dispatch officers on the 6th saying, I think we're going up to his home in Krivix and going to use a SWAT team to, arrest him. So he was their guy from day one. And I think they used what they actually found, whatever it was, in a way where they can control it, bring it all back. And when they ran into situations where, they're finding more bones on the 11th and 12th or 10th and 11th, they got to come up with something, okay, well, where can we say these came from then? Because we already shipped off the bones in the burn pit. Well, let's just say we're going to retest or relook through the burn barrels, and some of them are in there. So I don't know exactly. And that's
I've got a question.
Yeah.
With the Darcy barrel on the 5th, did they stop and search the barrel when the dogs hit on it?
No.
What was law enforcement's reaction to it?
I don't think there's any reports of anyone actually taking a serious look inside. There might have been, Jack, you can correct me, or someone can correct me if I'm wrong. But there's
Didn't they flag it? Didn't they just flag it? Put a flag in the ground?
supposedly.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe, right? You know,
Yeah.
if you got a cadaver dog going crazy at some burn barrels, don't you think someone would take a peek in?
You'd think.
Yeah.
So it's weird to me that they don't remove those until the morning of the 6th.
Speaking of such, though, not sorry to interrupt, but just
You're fine.
my head sometimes moves quicker than my mouth. Well, my mouth moves quicker than my head. I've got to say it. But that leaning on to what Cap just asked and what you just answered, the question I have is, there's different kind of an alert. So there's obviously a high alert, like the dog's confident there's something in it, which is they make that command and they show it. And then there's like a interest kind of an alert, from what I've understood, that they're saying that there could be something there. Do we know?
They're not sure.
So that's what that.
They're-
So do we know what kind of alert it was? Was it a positive, like this dog is going ape shit, or was it more like an alert, like, hey, handler, there might be something here, but I'm not going to go frantic about it? Which then kind of, if we had that answer, it could kind of balance out that detail that we're missing here. Like, if the dog's going ape shit, why aren't they going ape shit at the burn pit at Stephen Avery's, but just this barrel? Or like, what was the rate of it? That's basically where I was going with it. But we don't know, I believe. Is that right, Jax?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I know that they, for a full alert, it depends on the dog and how they're trained. Some dogs will bark, but it's a hard hit, or they'll sit if it's a hard hit. It just depends on how the dog is trained, but it means the same thing. But I think some they'll give a head indication or a high head if there's interest. Duke can correct me if I'm wrong.
no, I think you're right, and I'm going to just let you guys know I've got to jump out right after this here, but I will correct myself in the comments later if I'm wrong. But I'm fairly certain that the alerts that Brutus made, or was it Brutus or was it a different dog? I think Brutus, on the barrels were hard hits.
I'm pretty sure it was Brutus, and I think you're correct. I'd have to go back and read to be sure, though.
I'm almost positive that they're aggressive barks, like heavy hits. Like, hey guys, something's in here. So that's my thought. Thanks again, guys, for having me. It's just been such a treat to be able to jump on, and Jeff, hopefully I didn't ruin it for myself, and you'll invite me on some other time as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, consider yourself welcome.
And-
We really
And this is our little mending or bonding experience from when I told you I was unsubscribing the other week.
Well,
after
I can
your
see that you
ridiculous
haven't.
take.
I can see that you haven't. After my ridiculous opinion. Yeah, I know. I'm full of ridiculous opinions.
So
thank you, Duke Juke. Really appreciate you coming on. And of course, we will talk to you again soon. It's just everyone say thank you to Duke Juke out in the comments.
Hey, thanks, Duke.
Duke.
appreciate it, guys.
So, that's kind of fitting for our last episode after discussing a murderer, because we've had a couple people on in the past. I think Bob was on in the past,
Bob Bailey.
Yeah, that's right, Bob Bailey, and we had a great time talking to Bob Bailey. And great to hear Duke come on and share his thoughts. And I'm interested to hear more research that he's done, because it seems like he's put quite a few things together there, Jack.
Yeah, he's still. I've had having some discussions with him. He's really diving deep into some of these property tags, I'm gonna tell you, there's some weird shit going on. I've always known it. I mean, I looked at them a long time ago. When I say a long time ago, I'm talking 6, 7 years ago. So a lot of what I looked at, I've really kind of, it's not there anymore. It's just something else is taking its place, or 10 things. But there is some really weird shit with 79, 63, 64. There's a bunch of numbers there. There's some weird shit going on. I'm telling you. And here, if anyone can get to the bottom of it, it's probably going to be him, because he's trying to run down, every instance that there's a mention of these property tag numbers and where it came from and where it led. And that's the key point: where it came from and where it led. And I think there was some real fucking shenanigans and shell game going on. Obviously, I can't prove it. I just remember from my reading, I'm like, that's not, what did they say over here? So, and I didn't write any of this shit down, as I'm reading through, because, back when we got the documents originally, it was just like mad reading, and trying to detail some of the more key points. So I didn't write any of it down. I didn't take detailed notes. I didn't think I would really need to, but I did. I should have. So anyway, I think if anyone can get to the bottom of it, it's going to take him some time, but I think he will. At least of the information that we have.
Oh, yes. Well, as I said, it's fitting to have him on. We've had other people on randomly in the past from the chat, and I think it's good. I think it's good to have people that haven't been on before, that have a lot to say on a topic. I know we get caught up in our own thoughts, in our own discussion, and keeping new opinions is just so helpful to keep all of us focused and to keep our eyes clear. We kind of go over the same ground a lot, and so when we have someone new to add to the investigations and researches, I should say, it's beneficial to everybody.
Well, I don't think any of us really has been in this for a long time wants an echo chamber. I know we repeat a lot of things, but what's really interesting about what Duke is doing, he's taken he's got this habit, and it's a really good one, and I probably should pick it up, and I have to some degree, going way back to from when we got the photos, but he said that he has this bad habit. When he starts looking at photos, he starts zooming in on certain spots every time he opens the photos, and it's a good habit, I guess. But he gets distracted up into a rabbit hole, and away he goes. So good for him. I think that's a good habit. He found that photo from November 6th that was taken from the back of the Dassey property that we really dissected on the Reading with the Crew the other day. It's a really interesting photo. You saw that, right? You were on it, weren't you around the other day on Reading with the Crew, and
that's right.
He presented that? Yeah.
That's
So,
right.
Duke Bear standing there waiting on whoever's walking up with whatever they had in their hand. He wasn't aggressive. It's a lie. It's a total and complete fabrication. And to me, again, that's a problem. It's a real problem. And it's unfortunate, that that kind of thing didn't get a rebuttal at trial, because it matters. It matters a great deal. It matters a huge deal, because of this. They're thinking, this big aggressive dog in the back, nobody can go back there. And they just left the dog there for 3.5, 4 days. No way, man. No way Shutter would do that. I mean, he did some stuff that was a little, funky, but he seemed to be pretty much in line with what was going on and making decisions. It wasn't like he shied away from decisions. But I just don't think in his position he would have left an aggressive dog on that property while they were trying to work, and trying to feed this aggressive dog and risk an officer getting bit. No way. I don't believe it.
It's a load.
Yeah, that's just bullshit. What they would have done is they just would have got like a vet in or animal control and just taken Bear straight away.
Sure they would.
But they needed more time. That's the key.
Exactly. Yeah.
They needed more time. If we do it now, we're not going to get him. We got to wait, and then we can get him.
Well, I mean, if they were waiting on if they were waiting on him to, go at number 2 and empty his backside and collect that, okay, maybe a day at most, and then you have the dog taken away.
No,
After,
again, that would have just been he would have just been taken to like the rangers or a vet and they would have collected number 2s there.
well, I can't disagree with you, Kath. I can't. I'm just saying if that was in their mindset, thinking that bears eating up Teresa's and her bones, then they're going to wait around and find it themselves. Other than that, I'm not buying it. And then of course, we read Officer Minion's. I think it was Minion that said it. The dog's trying to go and he couldn't. Yeah, actually, it was Officer. She was from Brillion, talking about him trying to go and he couldn't go. And I guess he finally did, at the vet, and they didn't find anything.
No surprise there.
No, none whatsoever. But Duke said something else, and he's correct. Way back in 2016, early on, and I'm talking about before, really probably mid-February, late February 2016, before we even started getting any real documents. We didn't have anywhere to get any information except for some news reports, some old news footage that we dug up, and Making a Murderer. And that's all we had. There was really not much else out there on the web that we could really grab that was an official document. So yeah, there was a lot of guesswork. There was a lot of misconception. Some that was just flat wrong. And I think that anybody that was around at that time made a lot of gaffe mistakes. It's like, God, I got that shit wrong completely. So it was good. I guess it was a real good learning experience it was for me. I mean, I'd been reading true crime for a long time, but not to the depth that obviously I got into with this. God help me. What's wrong with me? Yeah, I need to have my head examined. God damn it. But you know what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying. We were guessing it. We were polarized. We were so polarized by this documentary that made these presentations right, wrong, or different. And I'm telling you right now, after I watched it the first time, I didn't know if Avery was guilty or not, and that was really what I felt. I felt like he probably wasn't given a fair shake. But as far as his true guilt or innocence, I really I didn't know. Of course, Brendan, I felt like they screwed with just what I saw on screen. Hey, interesting enough, I was watching an episode, and I know you guys probably don't remember, but anybody that's really followed Brendan's case that's maybe listening in, there was a psychologist, child psychologist named Dr. Richard Leo that gave us testimony in Brendan's trial, and I can't remember if he was in the hearings or not, but he definitely was part of the trial. Anyway, I was watching a Forensic Files the other night because I've been kind of binging it, and he was involved in that, and it was on. Actually, I posted this episode in the office the other day of this guy. He was really slow, had like an IQ of like 72, like Brendan. He was really slow, hard worker. Just seemed just to be a pretty good person, just really slow. He worked on this shrimping boat with it was just him and his captain, and there was a storm that rolled in, and they were trying to get the nets in, the shrimp nets. The captain's foot got caught in in one of the nets, drug him down, and fucking drowned him. Well, this real slow guy, he was able to get on something and was able to, or no, I think he swam. He wasn't on anything. Yeah, he said he swam till he was pretty much exhausted, but then he got found by some passing boat, just fortunately. Well, then the body of this captain gets picked up like 5 days later, and they start blaming this guy for murdering the captain. And he's saying, he had already told the story, and everybody believed him. Well, then this pathologist said, no, well, I found this, these stab wounds to the body. I think there was like 5 or 6 or whatever. And there's some other things, and he called it murder. This guy was, homicidal violence, whatever. So these cops go after this guy, and he says for hours he didn't. He's just repeating the same story, and then finally, I guess they beat on him a little bit, and actually quite a bit, off camera, of course. And the next day, his story started changing to match what they said. Whatever they said, that's what he told them back. It's crazy. So they beat a confession out of him, and this Dr. Richard Leo, of course, and it got reversed. He got exonerated, but this Dr. Richard Leo was part of that, which I thought, and he gave some pretty harsh words. And man, this defense lawyer for this guy, he was mad as hell. Oh my God, he was pissed. Sorry, I got off track there.
No, not at all. That's kind of one of the things we can do here on lives, though. Like, that's why I like this format, is we can go off track
spontaneously.
Yeah, it's the time to do it.
Yeah, that's good, Jax.
It was such a terrible, terrible thing. I mean, and I was reminded immediately of Brendan, of how they treated him. It was terrible. Yeah, it turns out those stab wounds weren't stab wounds. Another pathologist, and actually, the guy that found him, it was another boat of some type. He told them it looks like he was hit by a propeller, and that's exactly what it was. Because he's seen other bodies that had been struck by a propeller, but didn't see it and ran over the person, and they got sliced a few times with a propeller. It looks like stab wounds, but the pathologist never measured how deep those cuts were. He never measured it, and generally they're pretty shallow. So yeah, it's crazy, man. It's like, holy shit.
Wild stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Brendan, if KZ, you want to read it, Calf? Go ahead.
No, you read it.
Well, okay, Jack, read it.
No, Calf, go for it.
Okay, speaking of Brendan, if KZ is procedurally barred from getting access to evidence, why can't Laura try to get it?
This is an interesting and complicated one, and I think actually Cal could probably explain it the best.
She's like, well,
yeah,
well, from my understanding, I believe Laura could, but it has to be presented in the same motion as new evidence. So there's the layers I'm talking about, and I always say layers because there are so many, spider webs from it. The issue I have, I think, from what I understood, is Kathleen has already opened up that door. It has already been ruled and then denied. So because they were tried separately, I can understand why it gets confusing, because you would think, well, hang on, that doesn't apply to Brennan because it was a different trial. But they do keep that sensory links between the cases alive as well. So theoretically, let me explain it even better. Let's just say Laura put in a motion for new evidence on the ground of, let's look at something that KZ's done. Let's do the bones, for example. Now, so with the bones have already been heard. They've been heard from the circuit court, and they've been heard from the courts of appeal, and that has been affirmed, and they are now procedurally barred. So I think the issue that Laura would have is, although she could probably present it in Brendan's narrative in terms of his trial, the issue is, I don't think the courts of appeal or the circuit court would make a movement, a budge on it, because they wouldn't want to undermine their original thought process. They always said in their conclusions that just because the bones were found elsewhere, it doesn't eliminate Stephen nor Brendan for being responsible for moving it. So they kind of, when they always gave out their opinions, they always related it back to, so what? It doesn't still eliminate the the scenario might have been wrong from the state, it still doesn't clear the ones that were prosecuted per se. That's why I think when we've kind of gone through this Tom Skowinski thing, I think I've said it before and I'll vocally say it again, and this is only a scratch of what I understand on the law on it. I personally wish Laura was given Tom Skowinski. I wish Tom Skowinski was used for Laura, not KZ. And I'll explain it really quickly why in my head. Does not mean I'm right, everyone. I just want you to hear it out. The reason why I wonder that is for this simple fact. KZ's using it to strengthen because she's attaching that to her Denny argument, which is fair. And he names Bobby Dassey and she rolls with it because it adds to that element. I completely understand it. But let's just see what would have happened if it went the other way. If Laura would have presented it in a new motion, and let's face it, she can because she can always apply for it, but it's got to be new. Well, Tom Skowinski would have been that new. What is one thing that Tom Skowinski says in an email that you don't see him say for Stephen Avery? And that is, the person that I saw was not Brendan Dassey. So to me, that is one of the most key focal points of strength that could have been something that Laura could have narrowed in on. She then, in my opinion, could have presented it like, hey, listen, this witness is claiming it wasn't my client. So I want to have access to the RAV for further testing to see who it was. Now, Laura could have not said to Tom Skowinski, listen, back up on the Bobby shit. I want to leave the door open. I don't want it to have to be Bobby Dassey, because the problem that Kathleen, I think, faces, that if she does get denied, I feel will be part of this decision. And that will be Bobby Dassey's DNA has already been taken. It has already been compared to the RAV and all the forensic evidence allegedly in this case. And he was ruled out. So I think that is already a hard burden that Kathleen already has to overcome. She has to say, my Denny is responsible, but there's no forensic evidence on him. They're still only my clients. And at the same time, I have to undo that. So if Laura would have taken it, she could have not hit so hard on the Bobby aspect and left it more open. Like, well, I'm not seeing if it's Bobby because I know Bobby's already been compared. I'm opening it for who else was it that wasn't my client, because this guy clearly states it wasn't my client. So they are the things that I think that Laura could still do legally. I just don't think that anything that's been addressed with Kathleen in her previous motions and was denied would be successful now, because they're not going to make themselves look foolish to then go to that team. Oh, okay, it wasn't Brendan, because that, like we said in the last podcast, they're protecting, they need Brendan to stay put to keep Stephen in. They can't, because they'll undo each other. If you start pulling apart one case.
That's going to be a good question that I'm going to have for Travis, because
yeah,
I don't understand the law well enough to think about if Nyrider was to file let's just say a 97406 motion for post-conviction relief based on, and you're talking about, that's going to be a good question. I don't know. I really don't. I mean, I guess they could come back and cite what they said in the Avery case, because it is separate. I mean, they intentionally separated. But the really interesting thing about Brendan's trial, if those that have read the transcript, it was all about Stephen. It was all about Stephen. It's crazy. And they weren't really allowed to mention Brendan during Stephen's trial. But they went through, it was basically a mini Avery trial. I mean, not all of it, obviously, but a good chunk of it was, again, it was all about Stephen. So, I don't know, that's a really... Yeah, go ahead.
The issue, though, is the fact that Laura could probably put it in now about the Tom Skowinski thing, but the issue is he's getting filtered through the system right now as KZ's witness. Now, if he is not found to have any credibility behind him through the courts, or if something comes undone there, I'm going to say the word tainted, but he almost then becomes tainted for Brendan. That's what just like the Bones is now kind of tainted because they've already addressed it. So if Kathleen gets a response first while Laura's is pending and he's denied on that basis, why would they accept Brendan's one? Like that's why I always assumed or wonder if there would have been a more of a interesting turn of events if it was more favorable if Brendan had used it, because you would back off from the Bobby angle and you would focus more as it wasn't my client. There's the issue with Tom Skowinski. In all his emails and up to his affidavit, although when he refers to the other person, the second partner in crime, which we all refer to as Santa, although the description he gives isn't matching Stephen Avery, which is fair, but he never not says it's not Stephen. Does that make sense? Like he never confidently says, like he did with Brendan, he made that bold statement. It's not.
No, he just
Brendan
says he just says it's an older gentleman, if I remember him correctly.
Yeah, he just says it's an old. And then you've got the inconsistencies to begin with. When you read the very first email, he says he didn't even see the second person because they were crouched. And then by the second one, it morphs into that he had, he was an older gentleman, 60s, and then it goes on. And then by the time we get to an affidavit, the guy's in a jacket. He's got a 12-inch beard. He's 60 years old. And here's the irony. Everyone's been looking for Santa on this eyewitness account of this description. Yet Kathleen at the moment, in her motions, is kind of turning that into Mike Osmondson. Now, here's the catch. This is the bittersweet part of it. If Kathleen can turn a description of a gentleman, an older gentleman, and the features that, Tom Skowinski puts out there as Mike, the state will turn around and go, the double-headed sword here. Then if you can apply that description that is not Mike O, he wasn't 60 years old, there is no evidence he had a long grey beard and all these things that you're trying to turn into, why can't it still be Stephen Avery? So these are all those little layers, all these little inconsistencies that she has to get over. And guess who has to make that decision? Fucking Angela.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but it's true, and I think we can all pretty much agree. It's the rare eyewitness that nails it. Most of the time, eyewitness testimony is really pretty piss poor. That's the fact. And some have just been flat wrong. I mean, just wrong.
Exactly. Let's face it. We can all sit here confidently and say that it was Penny herself that eyewitnessed, because she was her own eyewitness, that finger pointed to Stephen Avery. Now, I know that behind the closed doors, we know that there was that there was a persuasion behind that. There was the way that they went about that.
Pressure.
I get that. Pressure. Yep. Totally get that. But you got to remember, it's not hard. If you could literally Google this. Google the top reasons of wrongful incarcerations. And one of them is eyewitness accounts. It's the top one. Eyewitness accounts has put people in jail because they have got it wrong. And I think I said it in one of the last podcasts. Our minds are only designed to fill in the gaps we don't understand. And the issue that I have with Tom Skowinski, in terms of the long run, I completely agree that the whole phone call is such a credible thing for him because it shows that he did a witness A event. But the issue is he discloses in his email that he had just watched Man 1 and Man 2. And that's an issue I feel that is going to hit a brick wall with the courts because they're going to think that was a bias filler of his brain. He had an event. He wasn't quite sure of whether it was good information or bad information. Then he's watched something years later. And because his brain never really understood what he saw or what was going on, he's then started to fill in the blanks, because that's what we do. That's what we do as humans. We fill in what we don't understand. And when he openly discloses that making a murderer was the beginning of the emails, I don't see Angela being favorable to that, especially when not only her, but the courts of appeal have made, which in the last episode you guys will see, because I get Big Jeff to read it, they actually take digs out of all of us in the community for thinking that we're all sleuths and that the high profile case on it. So yeah, more on that later, but that's just where I was going with it.
Well, I got the Zawinski call ready if you want to hear it again.
Well, it's pretty short.
Got a couple calls I'd like to share at some point, but we don't have to hear them right now.
Well, you know, another problem with memory that I've seen is that time, not every memory, because some of them are pretty locked, and you know, you have a group of people that were, you know, like at a party or something, and something funny happens, and that memory kind of becomes locked, and it's backed up by other people that remember virtually the same thing. But with other memories, they get colored over time. They do. I've seen it happen. I've done it myself, unknowingly done it myself. So it is an issue. I don't know how they'll. I don't know how the court will deal with it. I don't know what the law requires them to do with it because of how it's presented. I don't know. Well, let's see. Interesting then, though, about Brendan. That's a question I'm going to have to try to ask Travis and get him to help at least me understand it. Maybe you can help the rest of us too.
There was something that came up, and I had the comment up. I should have left it up, and it was related to what Kel was talking about. And Anthony Hill says the bearded guy was already identified through Bobby's phone records. I thought, Kel, I think we know who that is. Is that
Kevin Hansen?
Yeah, Hansen. That's right.
Yeah, so he spoke to KZ and she dropped him. And that's actually something that privately that a few of us discussed, because when you read the description, he kind of fit that. And then I think Kathleen was going on that. And there was even comments made from Sandy. I don't know whether she was referring to him. It was always a bit of a mystery, but this has come up in the community quite a lot when Kevin hit the radar. I do know, I can say that KZ allegedly did absolutely speak to him, and then she dropped him. She moved on to it, and then she replaced it with what we see now, which is Mike Osmondson. So I can't see there being any weight in Kevin if she hasn't brought him up. You got to remember, what Kathleen does only really matters what she puts in that motion. That motion is her leading arguments, not what investigation led up to it. It's what makes it in, because that's what she's challenging.
Yeah, I think you got that one there, Kel. I got another one for you guys. Bethany says, I've always wondered if it was Chuck and his son, Chris, I think is his name. Chuck was known for wearing large puffy coats, plus he was half in, half out, pushing the Rav. He would have seemed taller, just in my opinion. You know, this is one, you know, I think whenever you try to think about two people in this, you could think Zipperer and Jason Zipperer, right? George and Jason. You could think Chuck and Chris Avery, right? You could think, you know, so it is interesting. I guess that's why you'd have to ask Tom Zawinski at a hearing and show him their picture.
Oh, that's right. And the other thing to that, though, is it's what Tom Zawinski has settled on as well that will be heard in the courts. So he settled on the morning of the 5th. Well, listen, and again, I am not disputing that this isn't a possibility, but in a sense, Chuck is alibied. He's in Crivets. He left the Friday night. He left with Brendan. Of course, there is room that while everyone was asleep in Crivets, they made their way back down. He drove in and did what he had to do. But that is the issues that you come into when you start trying to explore that, because in a sense, no one has disputed that anyone left Crivets, that they were all up there. They were accountable for. Now, that doesn't mean he didn't sneak out in the night, because allegedly this was done in the morning. Now, if you go back to Tom Squincy's original emails, he has this incident happening throughout the week, and he refers to it several times as being through the week because he references it to his child, his son, that he had to get to school. Now, I don't know about you guys, but there's no school on Saturdays. So when, you know, what kind of prompted him to settle on the 5th? That's what an evidentiary hearing's for, because these are the questions that would come up to him. Like, and what is it that made you realize that it wasn't the night of the school, because you referred to going to school, that you decided that it was the 5th? These are all the hard questions the state would throw at him and to see if they could buckle him. The vetting prior to that would come from Kathleen to probably, you know, give you yes or no answers and make sure you don't get caught in that trap, because this is the problem with all these evidentiary hearings. Doors can get opened, and once a door gets open, they can latch in, especially the state, that they've got more to lose at this stage, in a sense, because they can't. I think we heard it in the last session of the podcast we just heard with Stephen, when he was talking to Kathleen, and he's like, they don't want me out because they will lose basically everything. They can't be wrong. This is too big of a high profile. They just cannot be wrong, but they are. So right now, they're all riding on this to just keep riding out in their favor. And I guess that's why they will come out with their guns firing, and they will not make it easy. And they'll also look for every loophole. They will look for every avenue to rattle a witness, to do whatever it takes to keep their conviction alive. That, in my opinion.
I can tell you from, of course, this is going back. I'm above. Believe it or not, I'm above 40. I know it's hard to believe. I'm kidding. I can tell you, Cal, from as a student that went to school, grades 1 through 12 here in America, that I remember, and it was because of snow. 1 year, and it only lasted for, I think, 2, maybe 3, or they did it 2 or 3. It wasn't weeks in a row. It was like, because they had to catch up because so much school was missed. There was Saturday school, but I'm telling you, that doesn't happen. School's not held on Saturday here, as a rule. Only in the rarest of occasions. So I'm going to say, at that time in November 5th of 2005, no school.
Also, too, doesn't he say, when he brings up, he says like during the week or something, and doesn't refer to it like the day before or a couple of days before?
That's not in the phone call we hear. In the phone call we hear, it's very just, hey, I'm calling about the missing girl from Hilbert.
You want to hear it?
I don't know if it's good information or bad information. And then she goes, oh yeah, and then it gets transferred. And then you hear Carla, the dispatcher, talk to Sergeant Scott, and then it gets transferred, and then it cuts out. What you're referring to is the email, and it was, repeat the question again. What was it? What
It's
part?
like he doesn't say yesterday I saw something.
Okay, yeah, no. He said he always refers to it up until his affidavit in his emails leading up to it. It starts from between the dates of the 31st to the 5th, and then he makes a reference to the school. It's a school night because I have to be back to drop my child off, and then he refers it to days prior. Again, repeat, days prior to the RAV being found. I saw this. Now, he calls on the 6th of November, which is 1 day, less than 24 hours after the RAV is found. So he never identifies in email or in affidavit that and refers to it like yesterday or the day the car was found. He always puts that vocabulary wording prior to that event of the 5th.
Mm. Yeah.
Play it, Jeff. Everybody here, it's only a minute long.
All right, here we go. Tom Zawinski call. Let me know if you can't hear it.
I can hear it.
Nantucket County Sheriff's Department. This is Carla. Can I help you?
Carla, I don't know if I
this good information, bad information? Who do I talk to about this? The girl that's missing from Hilbert?
I can have you speak with my shift commander. Can you hold on a moment?
Thank you.
Sure. Hey, I'm going to transfer out to the shift commander. You'll be speaking with Sergeant Singlaub, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Transport.
Scott, when I hang up, it's a man on the phone who thinks he has some maybe more leads, and you wanted to speak with somebody on the case.
All right.
Just sucks that we don't get to hear the other side of that.
It does suck. And here's the other catch to it, though. Brian, who usually joins us but was unfortunate, not able to make it tonight, he was able to find, or I believe he was shown that, I think he brings up quite a lot, that they were all told early on, allegedly, not to write reports. Something was going fuzzy there. And he always references that because he's like, this guy, it's a catch-22, because did this guy simply ignore this, or did he just not write a report based on orders that was in place at this stage? The other part of that is we have a phone call in the morning of the 5th, few hours, or a day before this, a day earlier than this phone call comes in, where we have two individuals, Herman and I think it's, come on guys, help me, I guess, Remiker.
Remiker? Oh, I got it up.
Taking the piss out of this same guy for
I
not
got the
doing
call
the
ready.
report and
It's
not
ready.
doing his job.
Yeah, you want to hear
Day,
it?
yeah, go on.
All right, here we go.
Have a listen to them
Forward.
taking the piss out of this same guy that took this call.
Yeah, so that not to just rephrase it, but I'm gonna this is a call, Remiker calling Todd Herman, and they end up talking about Singlaub, who's the guy that we were just talking about. Right. Okay, here we go.
Hello, Todd Remiker. Yeah. How you doing?
Hey, man, just who I was looking for.
Uh-oh. Did you get any pass on from Singlaub last night?
He said he told you everything he knew. He's got one little pink note on the side of the beat sheet. I don't know what that was.
Oh, okay.
The insurance commander's office?
Yeah.
And big scribbling on there.
Okay.
But I had a guy call me this morning.
Okay.
He said he thought it was Monday. He was driving towards the pier and he saw a RAV4. He thinks it had that Toyota symbol on the back. It was either green or blue.
Okay.
Nobody, he doesn't know who was driving it or what or where it was on the interstate, but he thought it was about 8:45. But I think it was Monday.
8:45 a.m.?
Yeah. That would have been too early, huh?
Well, yeah, I'd like to know where she was after that, like
He said this was
8:45
going
p.m.
northbound on the interstate.
Okay.
He gave me a phone number, 682-2976.
Right, here's the part.
Okay. Green or blue, you said?
Yeah, he wasn't sure. He remembered, after seeing the news and stuff, that started ringing bells, but obviously he said I didn't get a registration plate or really take notice who was driving, but I remember the symbol on the back, that, the circle with the Toyota symbol, he said.
Okay.
So,
all right, yeah, Singlaub calls me at home at about 12:30. Well, I don't know what to do. What the fuck are you? He does that all the time.
take the notes.
Yeah.
I mean, if the worst case scenario, just take the notes and
Yeah.
follow up on it.
Well, if we're getting calls, about this and that, I don't know what go out, see if the car's there. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, you don't have to make contact,
Yeah.
but make a freaking decision. idiot.
Hanging it pretty thick on Sergeant Commander Singlab there. Seems like, well, here's the problem we run into. We have evidence that this guy's incompetent.
Yep. And that's the question. Are they, if we go to an evidentiary hearing, is that what the law just going to throw him under the bus and be like, listen, we didn't even know about it because this cop was such a fucking idiot that he didn't even write a report. How do we even know about it? So there is no Brady when we didn't even know about it.
He's got a pink slip here, but I don't know what the hell that even means. Like, the guy doesn't even take, then as you're saying, take notes. Like, if you just take notes, then just give it to the next guy. If you make a decision, man. It's yeah, it is interesting to just hear the dynamics of what goes on, the inter office politics, right? Yeah, I don't know what anybody else, Jack or Cap, if you have any feelings on that.
Oh, no. I was just laughing.
Oh, yeah.
At
Well,
make a freaking decision, you idiot.
Yeah, I mean, basically that's the point that we were making with the phone call. They continue on and they talk about a couple. It's not very long. If you guys really want to listen to it, it's up to you. But I think that's the point that we were looking for, is that they were saying that the guy's kind of incompetent. And
yeah,
take it for what it's worth. Take it for
I
what
will
it's
tell
worth.
you, I put it in the chat, but our records requested everything on Singlab as it pertained to the case. There was nothing, and I requested his personnel file, which was pretty boring as well. But he's retired now. After he retired, I don't remember what year it was now, but I think he maybe did some reserve work or something with them. But I think he's he completely was gone after a certain point in time. Retired. But yeah, Remaker threw him under the bus pretty good. Herman was just agreeing with him. Pretty bad, actually, but
I really wish Brian was here right now, because Brian has some experience working in dispatch, and just to hear like this kind of real, it's not related necessarily to the case or anything. I mean, although he's hoping that he's going to get a tip, right? Because that's what Remaker's looking for. He's looking for anybody that's got a tip about Teresa, but it just kind of shows like the realism about how that's what happens in offices and in professional settings. There's this guy that just, why can't he just do it? Why do I end up doing his job? Like, okay, take a note. I'll go out there and check. It even says in the call, you don't have to get out of the car. You don't have to make contact with anybody. Just go out there and poke around.
Make a note. Make a note of it.
Yeah, they take a note. Yeah, exactly. And so, it's sad to say, but that's where we are.
Yeah.
Well, here's a question for the panel and for everyone in, obviously, the chat, because I see it keep coming up where people are like, oh, well, they deleted the other half. I'll start it in terms of this. I don't think there is another half, period. I think from what we were able to see, it was most likely transferred to his mobile, and the moment that the dispatch disconnected, the whole line got disconnected and the recording part went with it.
There is no other half. There is no recorded other half. Well,
what about a paper trail?
Well, I could, if there is one, they didn't give it to me. It's and I'm telling you, I've listened to hundreds and hundreds of these calls now. There's not one call that gets transferred to a mobile that you get the second part. Now, if somebody calls in from mobile to dispatch, that's different. They can talk and it's recorded. But when they make a connection from outside of dispatch to an outside line, the recording ends, a new connection is formed. It leaves the system at Manitowoc Dispatch. Calumet too. I don't remember one that was ever patched through that they connected, that we had the second part of the recording. Now, if it's in the office, now that's different because it's still part of the system. But once it makes the connection to the outside, it's over. It's done.
Surely
right.
he had to write something down. Maybe it's in a hidden folder somewhere along with Gregory Allen's.
Well, maybe.
The guy who never writes anything down probably didn't write anything down on this one. If anything, he's like, oh, I'll just ignore it, and they'll call back and get a different cop. You know what I mean? Like, he just doesn't seem like he's the guy that wants to do his job. I mean, that's just Remaker's point of view, though, guys. You know, let's remember. They could have an inaccurate understanding of who he is. Maybe they're just giving him a hard time. They don't really know.
And Herman was agreeing with him. So that's two right there.
It's true. I'm trying to find anything, but it's just sounds like he's not good at his job, or he was, you know, at that point in time anyway, he was not, you know.
He may have just went in and said, I got another crazy tip, and it was ignored. It's very possible. Depending on what they were doing, where he was at, who he was with, it could have just completely got ignored. Even if he did make mention of it. I can see it happening because on the 6th, they were neck deep, right? Rav had been found. They're doing searches. They're over in the quarry. They're doing this. There was a lot of shit. There was a lot of moving parts going on at the time. May have got completely ignored. Plus, if these other detectives, if these other
seeing the Rav being pushed, it's not something you can just like turn a blind eye to.
Rav, I guess, yeah. The story is pretty interesting as someone pushing the Rav. Otherwise, you'd be like,
yeah.
So
I don't know. So why would he ignore that?
Well, did he ignore it? Was he just incompetent, or, you know, that's the thing. It's going to be hard to prove something nefarious went down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
Now, the fact that they withheld the call that they did is its own issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is another issue that got withheld for so long.
I mean,
I don't know how the court may ignore that too, but I don't know.
I kind of got want to play like random calls. I kind of got, you know, there's that list that you guys put together, a foul play of calls, and I got a couple more if you guys are ready for it.
Key calls
from that playlist that you guys made. Key calls. It is a fantastic playlist, and I might be the one who utilizes it more than anybody because I'm constantly on there.
I've actually added 2 to it in the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 days. I'm fixed that. I got another one that I haven't done yet. That's been isolated and cleaned up. Yeah, it's another one that we.
I think I did see one of the new ones. We'll have to get to that. This one is this is a really kind of a strange call because we don't really hear much from Scott Blodorn, right? But here we get to hear his voice, and he's calling in about some receipts or some paperwork he's got.
Yep.
Cameron County Sheriff's Department. Hi, I'm helping with the search for Teresa Holbuck. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually a roommate, and I've got a receipt for something that I need to get to, like Poggle or. Keith, you want to drop it off at the sheriff's office? What's that? You can drop it off at the sheriff's office. Can I fax it? Yeah, fax it 849. Yep. 1613.
So this is on the 7th, and he's still trying to get in direct contact with Poggle. He's not trying to reach Wiegert, who's the lead investigator. He's going right to the top.
Yep.
Interesting, to say the least. I think that's it of the call. Right?
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. You're welcome.
Yeah, yeah. So it is interesting that he's still reaching out just to get to Poggle.
And what was he faxing? What receipts?
What's he sending? And he doesn't want to say, right? He doesn't want to.
Nope, he's not opening up as to what it is.
Well, it's the 7th. What could they be asking for her receipts? I mean, at the 7th, they're finding stuff like the electronics. Is that right?
The electronics were found on the 7th, midday, by Satters.
Here's 5:46 p.m. They could have said, "Hey, do you got any documentation on the electronics that she had?"
And they were found at I want to say it was 12:30-ish, 8 p.m. that right after lunch, somewhere around there.
Very, very interesting. I just thought it was good to hear his voice as well. It's always good to put a voice to a face. You know what I mean? I just think I think it's helpful to some degree. And we talked about Remaker and Herman talking, and it just sounds like I'm living back in Wisconsin when I hear them.
Well, they trashed Bloodhorn pretty good at the end of that call too.
Oh, they do. That's right. That's in that same call that we didn't finish out. But they do say, Herman says, "Oh, did you see him? I saw him on TV."
Yeah, looking at the floor.
Looking at the floor, right?
The whole time. Yep.
Who knows what though? I mean, who knows what what was up with him? So.
Well, being on camera, I guess that changes your. I don't know.
You're self-conscious.
I can just imagine. Well, sure. I can just imagine, being on the a news crew there in your house or the house you live in. Yeah, that'd be a little weird.
I got another call.
What you got?
Here, this call is Sheriff Pagel calling in saying that them finding stuff, but just have to have it analyzed, and we'll put either her in the car or the house or him in the car. It looks like he's part of it. Man, do I need to read that again?
And then there's another call later that day. Let's see.
Hagel calling in saying them finding stuff, but just have to have it analyzed, and we'll put either her in the car or in the house or him in the car. It looks like he is part of it. Wow. Okay. I never heard this one. You guys ready?
Yeah, do it.
All right. Oh, it's 4 minutes, huh? Is there let me know Jack if there's a part where we don't need the whole thing. Otherwise, here we go.
Sheriff's Department.
Hey, good morning, Jerry calling.
What are you doing?
I don't know. What are you doing?
I'm working. Somebody had called in sick again.
Really?
Yeah, Lisa.
Oh, Lisa did?
Yes, I've been out since 3.
Oh,
what's up?
Wow.
Grabbing a cup of coffee.
I hear you're a pretty good fire investigator.
I gave Weird shit yesterday. So, if they're all this easy, I'm going to work these instead of sensitive crime. No, it worked out very well. I was kind of pleased that we were able to help you out, and it came to some conclusion it's not going to cause you more grief. So.
Yeah, right.
I told Mark, hey, anything else I can do, give me a call. Mark asked me, says if something else comes up, I said, my pager number, whatever, find me. I'll help you out as much as I can. So
okay, good.
Not a problem.
You want to let the dispatchers know to tell the press that there will be another press conference at 3 o'clock today.
3 p.m. today. Sure, I can do that.
The Michigan Fire Department.
Okay.
And the sheriff is requesting that members of the press not contact him prior to the press conference.
You mean you, right?
Yes.
Okay. I asked her about that. It's just just before you call, and they're just asking about that. But I will tell them not to allow you to have any contact prior to that conference.
Right. Yeah. Tell them that that I do not wish to be contacted. These assholes have been.
Are you serious? They're pit bulls. Why don't they wait? I mean,
that's what I tell them. I said, there's a news conference at 3 o'clock. I'll talk to you then. Bye.
Unbelievable.
And that's going to be addressed today.
Good.
Well, he seems to be the opposite of Ken Kratz there. I didn't mean to stop the call, but he's like, God, this press keeps calling me. He was happy to do the press conference and say what he had to say, but he's not happy to answer their questions one-on-one. I think that's
no. Well, yeah, but he's willing to just accept that call from Pam of God on Saturday morning right away, put her through now.
What a great connection, Jack. I wasn't even thinking there. That is so smart. Exactly. He doesn't want to hear from anybody. Don't tell him not to call me.
I told you, unless another detective or somebody was trying to get a hold of Pagel, no one got put through. No one.
Good. I mean, you got enough things to worry about without having to tell them to go away.
Exactly.
I mean, you're being kind and you bet you're getting kind and cordial, just keeping them updated the best you can, and not. I get that impression that they're not. And even Kratz's interview yesterday, it's like, well, we're not being told anything. Well, it's a criminal investigation, believe it or not. I mean, sure, it's a missing person, but we're doing everything in our power to try and find how, come, and what for. And
exactly.
Jesus,
exactly. Yep.
Unbelievable.
And they're basically going to be told the same thing today.
Be nice. Don't be like me. Be nice.
I'm just going to tell them we're not going to tell them what we found or where we found it.
Well, exactly.
That's what we'll find out at the trial, hopefully.
There you go. How's it going?
We're finding stuff.
Trial.
We just have to have it analyzed to see, what significant, how significant it is, and
sure.
If it puts, kind of either put her in the vehicle or put her in the house or him in the vehicle.
Yeah. But sure, just getting the information. I talked to Mark a little bit.
That was
looks like
an interesting comment. Yeah, that was an interesting comment he made.
Let's go back to it.
Because this is the 8th. He's talking about waiting for analysis on it. Well, what do we know comes? The blood. I reckon that they're talking about finding him in her RAV, the blood, and they're waiting for the results to come back to see if it links to him, because it could put him in her car. Him in her car. They found blood, but we're waiting to see. This is the 8th. They're waiting to see who it comes back to. They find out the next day.
Well,
no, my apologies.
Yeah,
they take the blood on the 9th, the next day, and they find out on the 10th. So they were waiting to start doing all the swabs and all the bits that they do to him the next day.
Well, I was going to say there's another call. I think it's on the 10th with Poggle, and he's talking about they found blood on the key, and there's some other stuff that I don't know what he's talking about, because as far as I know, they didn't find any blood on the key. It's probably on down in the list there somewhere, Jeff. I don't remember at this point, but yeah, I think it was on the 10th. But he said try to put her in his house or him in the car. Try to put her. Maybe it was. Yeah, maybe it's just phrasing that I'm catching, but it's implicit that what they're doing instead of what they're finding. Maybe he doesn't mean it that way. It's just, I don't know. I called it. Maybe mean nothing.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. It sure looks like it.
Yeah, great.
We can just find her.
Okay, well, that's the key. You could do that. Well, then you got a whole other crime scene. How much longer are you going to be spending out there, do you think?
Today for sure. And we'll see tonight what it looks like. Is Larry working today?
Yes, he is.
You want to ask him if we need assistance from his department?
No, is he talking about Larry Ledvina?
I doubt it.
Okay.
But I don't know that for sure. Ledvina's involvement, if he was involved at all, seems to be periphery and not directly, because I don't think we heard really anything about, maybe one very brief mention about Ledvina, but I don't remember hearing anything else.
Former records custodian. That's just, it just popped in my head.
For many years. That's correct.
Yeah.
As far as securing the crime scene tonight,
sure. Okay, not a problem. I'll tell him. I'm sure it's not going to be a problem, but I'll check with him this morning when he comes on.
Okay, alrighty, because I think our guys are getting burnt out, and
no doubt.
Yeah, we could just get some fresh people out there. I see a benefit.
Hang on a second, Jerry. Who's working the street where? Do you know who's working here today, Jerry, in the county?
Oh, in the county?
Yeah.
Oh, I know they've been juggling things around. No, I don't.
Okay, he does not know. No. Yeah, she says somebody's working till 11, I guess.
Could be. I think, they're working like 12-hour shifts.
Yeah, spreading yourself kind of thin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They've been they've been great. Nobody's been complaining or bitching.
Oh no. But when when I just asked her, is anybody's disposition getting stretched? And he said everybody's working well together, which is great to hear. For a common goal. And,
right.
For a common goal. Sorry.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm taking him out of context, but we're all working together here for a common goal. Everybody's working together really well.
Well, that's sort of true, but that's not entirely true. But you involve that many cops, you're gonna have problems. You involve a group of people of that size of whatever you're doing, you're gonna have.
I agree.
That's right.
I think this one's almost done.
Okay.
All right, my friend.
Yeah, that was it. So, yeah, interesting call. Do you remember what that one was called that you were talking about, the other call? If I
It's
could
on the
find it.
10th. Just scroll down on the 10th, and I think you'll probably see it.
Is it called Jerry Pagel Spreading Word, Stevens DNA
Yep.
Confirmed?
Yep. I think
that
that's
the
it.
one? Okay.
I think so.
All right, here we go. He's spreading the word like he's an evangelist. Okay, this one is called Queso Dispatch Calls. It's November 10th at almost 6 p.m. at night. Jerry Pagel spreading the word Stevens DNA confirmed to the RAV and Key continuation of search of pit after finding more bones and body parts.
Yep.
Interesting. Here we go.
JP.
Yeah.
Got your case, huh?
We got her.
You notice? I'm sorry, man. To back up and give him. There's no ringing on some of these calls. Does that ever?
No.
You ever wonder about that?
Yes. There are
Like, why do
calls
some of them have the ringing and then some of them don't.
we don't. I can't answer that other than to say that the Queso dispatch calls were edited. They're calls that I've said this before. It'll go from one file to the next, and they're in the middle of a conversation with nothing to start it. So they were definitely clipped.
Okay. All right.
JP.
Yeah.
Got your case, huh?
We got her.
Cool.
Man, oh man, we've been waiting for this all day.
Cool.
Uh-huh.
So what Brett just told me, they found his blood, verified his blood in the car and also on the key, huh?
Also on the key, vehicle he says he's never been in.
Cool. Cool. Great.
Yeah. Oh, this is fantastic news.
Good. Hey,
all paid off.
One thing I got to ask you here quickly.
Yeah.
That skid steer, do we still need to take that down to Madison tomorrow or not?
No, it's changed. What we'll do is collect it, and we're going to bring it back to the sheriff's department. We need to store it somewhere.
Well, apparently we're storing the vehicles in storage sheds. We might as well just put that in with them, right?
No, we can't have them together.
Okay.
They have to be separate because of the possibility of contamination.
How about in separate units?
We can't have the two vehicles together. We got to have separate units for all of them.
Okay. Well.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. So he's saying the right things. You know what I mean? He's saying, no. You got to make sure that those cars are separate because we don't want any contamination of.
Yeah, we got to keep them suckers
blood
separate.
ending up in her car. We wouldn't want that.
But Kel caught it too. It all paid off. What paid off? Were you investing in Intel stock or something, and you got to pay off? Come on, that's not, again, it's verbiage, and I get it that for us it sounds like one thing, and he may not mean it that way, but it sure sounds weird.
It all paid off, didn't it?
Yeah, and blood on the key. There was Colin didn't say anything about no blood on the key.
Yeah,
it's just
and this is
touch
coming
DNA.
from the sheriff. This isn't rumors from Singlaw, who doesn't do his job very well. This is from
top dog
JP, as they call him. JP.
That's right. Yep.
What's up, JP?
Yeah.
Jerry Pagel.
Yep, that's right. I don't know. I don't know if he just doesn't understand. Maybe he's got a little Singlub running through him, and he just doesn't quite understand that it was touch DNA and not blood.
Running through him.
It's completely different. Touch DNA and blood. If it had blood on it, now we're talking about a whole different ball game.
It is.
And body part. No, I was going to say
body parts.
And the body parts. Yeah. Let's continue.
Yeah, I want to hear that part.
Well, instead of renting 2, why don't we rent 3?
Yeah, what we'll do is why don't we just get the vehicles tomorrow?
Yeah, I'm planning on doing that tomorrow afternoon.
And then we'll see tomorrow what the plan is on those other vehicles, the Pitster and the golf cart.
Oh, okay. So there's 2 units out there.
Yes, we got a Pitster.
Okay, well, we can work on that during the day.
Yeah,
You can let me know.
as long as we've got somebody going down and getting those vehicles out, I guess they are short of space.
Yeah, Wendorf and Kaharski are going to go down tomorrow afternoon, either at noon or 1 o'clock, depending on when Dan can work things out at home.
Okay. And then we've got
In my understanding, the rental units are coming from Denise.
Yeah, Denise says we can use those.
Okay.
She's given us okay on that.
Okay.
And then we need to lock them up.
Yep.
The padlocks are down there. Okay. All righty.
We'll take care of that.
Yep. Okay, that sounds fantastic.
Anything else?
Nope. I can't think of anything else. We'll be going out and continuing to search the pit tomorrow.
Right. You found bones and body parts?
Yes, a lot more.
Yes, a lot more. He asked him a straight question. You found bones and body parts. Yes, a lot more.
It's clear enough. And the pit they're talking about is the quarry. We're not talking about the Redaunt pit. We're talking about the quarry. That's where they were. That's where they were searching. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Just so you're aware, I don't know if Brett briefed you. I put in calls to Outagamie. They're going to supply us with 2 guys tonight, 2 guys tomorrow.
Okay.
Sheboygan Sheriff is supplying us 1 tonight, 1 tomorrow.
Okay.
Brown is supplying 3 tonight and 2 tomorrow, but Brown indicated they were going to be charging us, and tomorrow's a holiday for them.
That's some inner office politics stuff. That means, they're going to send some guys, but they're getting paid triple time.
Well, I'm not sure that Poggle cared too awful much because Manitowoc was paying for all of it.
For everything, that's right.
Everything got billed to Manitowoc.
Wow.
Oh, it is?
It's Veterans Day. But, as a veteran, it really should be a holiday. Just for veterans, at least.
Yeah.
But I told Brett he should review his staffing for tomorrow, and if he can cut out those 2 guys from Brown for tomorrow, because I'm sure those guys would be at triple time. So.
Okay. Yes. Yeah.
Jeff was right about triple time. Let's go.
So we should be okay tonight, according to Brett. And tomorrow, he sounded somewhat hopeful that he could get his lines pulled back tomorrow. So.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
Okay.
Okay.
Have a great night, Jerry.
Thanks for everything you've been doing.
Okay. You too.
Okay.
Take care. Bye.
Well, Jerry was pretty excited to tell his buddy there. Do you know who that guy was on the other end of the phone?
I don't. I've tried to recognize that voice, and I don't. It doesn't sound. It could be Captain Rush, but I don't think it is because he's filling in for dispatch. So I don't think it's Captain Rush. I don't know who that is. I really don't. It's one.
It's funny that they didn't take those 3 guys because they were going to have to pay him triple time. He's like, yeah, we'll cancel those guys.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, triple time. I mean, I don't know what they were getting paid per hour back then, but I'm guessing you're probably looking at $40-$50 an hour for triple time minimum.
Well, yeah, I mean,
for 3 guys for the day, it's like, Jesus
Manitowoc
Christ.
is paying. Let these guys earn their triple time. Come on.
That's right. It's Veterans Day. Come on. Don't be a dick, Poggle. Don't be
I don't
like
know about
that.
you, but I would work triple time if it was Veterans Day. That's all I'm saying.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd be happy. So there's just a few calls that kind of were sticking out. Let's see here. We did the Scott Blodorn one, and this one about Pagel. We did 2 of them on Pagel. Really interesting.
Yeah,
Cool.
we covered one, and I'm sure we'll cover more in the upcoming next few weeks. But thinking about Search Team A, on the 7th, there's a phone call. Actually, the one that I isolated, and Andy B cleaned it up with his magical denoising machine. It's talking about staffing on the 7th, and I can't remember if it was Herman that was talking, or I don't remember. Whoever it was that was talking about this said he's got out there. He's talking about at the property right now. He's going down this list of people, and virtually all of them from Search Team A. Siders, Bushman, Yost. I can't remember the rest of them, but there's like however many it was. He named off several because Manitowoc had a real problem getting people to work. I mean, a massive problem. Syme was on the phone pretty much every day begging people to work. They were going through jury bailiffs. They were going through anyone that had certification that were sworn. I mean, there's different certifications for these officers. If they weren't they didn't have a certain certification, they couldn't be called as security. I guess that means they couldn't handle a gun and do an arrest. So I don't know exactly what that means, but they struggled getting security coverage. Just basically people standing there with a log and a flashlight, on night shift, thermos of coffee or two to pass the time, just to watch a barrel or whatever. That would be boring work, but shit, I'd be all up in that stuff, dude.
It's cripple time. I'm there,
dude. I work so much stuff and work my ass off for overtime. I mean, hard work.
Oh man, we used to say like, I'll shovel elephant shit for $50 an hour. Whatever you need me to do for $50 an hour.
Well, I mean, when I became a supervisor, especially after I moved, and I was working for a large company. I mean, for overtime, because they had different rules at that company. They had a lot of employees, and I mean, plants all over the world. But and I didn't know they paid overtime, but they did, and it was based on your salary and some other factors. But I made an embarrassing amount of money for overtime. For overtime, it's crazy, absolutely crazy.
That's how you win. That's how you got to win. Okay, so I got one more real quick call that ties into something that we were talking about earlier, and then maybe we'll move to wrap-up comments.
What's the next? Oh, the vet hospital. Oh yeah, absolutely.
So here we go. I think we were talking about this earlier. The vet.
Can I preface this just for just 1 second?
Yes, absolutely.
Talking about this vicious fucking dog that they left there for 4 days. These vets come on the morning of the 9th, I think, November 9th. They spend from the time they check in on the in sheet to the time they check out was 7 minutes getting this vicious dog. That's all I got to say.
7 minutes to get this vicious dog. Okay, here we go. This is the vet hospital calls back to say that Bear has given the fecal matter for forensic examination. I think it's a great call for us to end it on.
Halifax County Sheriff's Office. Hi, my name is Michelle Hansen, and I'm calling from the Two Rivers Veterinary Hospital. Last night we picked up Stephen Avery's dog off the premises, and we were told that when we have fecal matter, we are supposed to call you and have someone pick it up. Okay. I do. You do? Yes, I do. All right. I will let them know that. Thank you. Thank you. Yep. Bye.
I do, because you did.
And I will tell you, there was a call. I don't remember if it was Calumet or Manitowoc. I don't remember. But anyway, I think it was Manitowoc. It was Syme, I think, calling. I don't remember the officer's name to go and pick up this dog shit. Seriously, yeah. So there was a call.
Well, we've been at it for about 2 hours, 15 minutes, so we're going to probably shift gears into wrap-up here, and I'll give everybody their last wraps, as we like to call it. So, Calf, if you're there and with us still, I'll have you sign off. Yeah, sounds like it's about right, yeah.
Not really. Not really. No.
Are we really that boring, Calf? Are we really that boring?
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, that was good. That's a long time, a couple of hours, but yeah. I really enjoyed JUCON too today. That was excellent. And yeah, thanks for all the viewers are coming along and chatting. Great questions. And thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming. We'll have you back on Friday. You guys don't forget in the chat we're going to do on to the next on Friday.
Yeah.
Should be a pretty good one. The second one, more questions. We're going to have a little wider of a scope there. So bring your research. And yeah, I agree, Kath. It was nice having Duke Juke on, and hope we can find maybe some other people who are, just as passionate. And yeah, good job.
Got some shy ones in there. But
We'll bring them around. Well,
we'll bring them around.
We'll bring them around. I agree. And we'll go to you, Jack, next, and you can give your wrap-up comments or last wraps, as we're calling it.
Yeah, just a couple of things. It was great having Duke on. Some really good insight. I really appreciate his detail to what we have. I wish we had more, but it is what it is. So looking forward with more discussions with him. Appreciated talking about the post-conviction stuff, and I really want to, I'm sure other people do too, want to pick at Travis's brain if he's able to make it on this coming weekend. Really looking forward if you can do it, or whenever he can swing it. No, there's no pressure. It's not going anywhere. So to talk to him and get him to help us from a legal standpoint. He works, in this body of what we call the criminal justice system, so he understands it and what he sees as expectations from the courts. And then, of course, getting into these calls, I love them, for various reasons. I'm sure that, as I've said a million times, I'm sure we're missing a lot of calls. I'm sure of it. I know there were calls made because they're talked about in calls we get, or we have, about a call, blah, 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 but we don't have that call. And
wow.
the question is, why don't we have it? I wish that there was some way that we could get the November 4th radio dispatch from Manitowoc, but at this point in time, I don't see that happening. That's unfortunate. And then, of course, the photos that I talked about earlier. Hopefully, I'll get a positive reply about if they're going to continue to stand by and say they don't have them. Who does? Somebody has them. They had to have been set with the rest. They would not. There's no reason they would have isolated the 8th and the 9th. I'm talking about the Wisconsin State Troopers Reconstruction Unit. They wouldn't have isolated those 2 days separate from the rest, would they? Why would they? No. Sorry. That doesn't fly with the Big Jeff and Jack, law firm. Sorry, it's not going to work.
Jeff
anyway.
And Jeff and Jack. It's got to be two. Like all those law firms have two of the same name, like Anderson, and Rotier, right?
There
Jeff,
you go.
Jeff and Jack. Yeah, that sounds about right.
That works. That works for me. Yeah. So
you're
anyway,
right. You're right.
Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
That's it.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's absolutely no reason those would be isolated. So I'm not buying it. And beyond that, thanks for everyone that's joined us in the live chat. You guys, I appreciate the invite. And on to the next. Literally
on to the next. But before on to the next, we don't want to leave Kelly out.
Absolutely not.
I have been guilty of doing that before. And this is my public apology to the one time that I closed the show before I gave Kelly her last closing remarks. So this is my public apology to you. And then you don't have to push me out a window.
Thanks, everyone, for coming. As always, great discussion. Thank you, panel. Like I said in the comments, if you guys, there's a Discord discussing a murder. If you guys want to pop over there, keep the discussions alive. We're always there, popping in and out. Drop the questions. If there's a certain topic you guys want us to bring on to the next, which is on Friday, then happily meet us over there and we'll bring it over here. So thank you, everyone, and I'll see you next time.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Head on over to on to the next on Friday, and we'll continue the conversation. Sure to be a good one. Friday night, we get a little bit more loose. There may be beer, there may be wine, there may not be.
Hey, Jeff, instead of waiting for Judge Angie to drop her decision, we may just have to go ahead and have a drink one Friday night. Just saying.
I'm not against that. It's been quite a while since I've had a drink, and we might have to do that on one of these Friday nights.
Same here.
Absolutely.
Same here.
And I really appreciate everybody out there who have been liking and subscribing, and consider becoming a member if you want. We have some perks that you get if you become a member. You get some content early to you, and that's always an exciting thing that you could consider doing to help show your support. But you know what? One of the cheapest and easiest ways and most effective ways is to share on your social media. Word of mouth is going to help us a lot. So I urge you guys to do that if you can. This is the last live that we're going to do after discussing a murder. So I do want to just kind of give an expressed thank you to everybody who's been coming to do these with us. We will probably start doing a live maybe in this time slot in the future, but we're off at least for the next few weeks. We're just going to be doing the Friday night on to the next lives, but we do have one more episode of Discussing a Murderer, and the finale that you've all been waiting for is next week at the same time. It is a 2.5-hour episode. It's like a double episode. So bring your supplies, whatever you need to get through it, whether that be an iPad case, a bottle of wine, a bottle of whiskey. What's that old Billy Joel song? A bottle of red, a bottle of white. Just consider that when you join us next time for Discussing a Murderer. But we'll see you guys Friday for On to the Next. And so this is Jeff Jones saying this has been after Discussing a Murderer. See you guys.